Survivor Series is just around the corner. As a matter of fact, it's this upcoming weekend where the superstars of Monday Night Raw will face off against the superstars of SmackDown. That includes each of the brand's champions. Will have inter-promotional, inter-brand matches between the champions, as well as some Survivor Series, traditional Survivor Series elimination tag team matches at the pay-per-view. But what I am most worried about is the fact that WWE does not care about this brand war, about the infighting between their superstars. That's exactly what they've been doing for the past few weeks, and just last night on Raw, they appeared to ramp up the build to Survivor Series just by having Raw superstars go up against SmackDown superstars who invaded the red brand. But here's the thing. Just a month ago, WWE had their annual draft where each brand was able to pick from a pool of WWE superstars and bring that superstar, whichever they chose, to their brand. So if we look at Team Raw, we've got Seth Rollins, we've got Kevin Owens, we've got Rey Mysterio, we've got Finn Balor, and we had Dominic Mysterio, all of which were a part of Team SmackDown, or the SmackDown brand, just about 2 months ago. Now, since Dominic Mysterio has been replaced by Bobby Lashley, a man who has dominated the WWE for the past year and a half, the Almighty, on Monday Night Raw, that is his show, and I was pretty happy to have him stay on Monday Night Raw. But we just go back to last week on Raw, where we had Seth Rollins pretty much call SmackDown superstars and call everybody in that brand bums. When just a month ago, he was still a part of that show. So again, this is not the talent's fault. You can't fault them for having to go out there and say those kinds of things. It's WWE's fault. Because at Crown Jewel last month, they announced this pay-per-view. That this pay-per-view is going to be about Raw versus SmackDown, red versus blue. And what did we see the night after Crown Jewel? We didn't see any Survivor Series qualification matches. No, we didn't see Raw superstars start being threatened by the blue brand anytime soon. No, what we saw was Adam Pearce and Sonya Deville, WWE officials, line up challengers for current WWE champion Big E. We saw a fantastic fatal four-way ladder match for the number one contendership that Seth Rollins won. We saw that. But no build at all for Survivor Series. And if there's no build, there's no excitement for the pay-per-view, even though WWE wants to act like it is. As a matter of fact, the only form of rivalry between Raw and SmackDown over the past year, since last year's Survivor Series, is the tribal chief himself, the head of the table, the Universal Champion, the quote-unquote self-proclaimed king of SmackDown, Roman Reigns, putting down the red brand, putting down Monday Night Raw as the B show. He's done that countless times since he became Universal Champion, since he returned last year. He has kept that thing going, but that's obviously not enough. And then on Monday Night Raw this past week, he had his cousins, the Usos, send a message to current WWE Champion Big E en route to their World Title Championship Champions versus Champions match at Survivor Series, which again, it does not matter. Survivor Series does not matter. There are no stakes. WWE has done nothing over the past few weeks, over the past few months, over the past few years. Hell, since 2010, there isn't any rivalry between Raw and SmackDown. Yes, back then the rosters were separated, much like they are now. Yes, in 2016, they separated those same rosters and tried to recreate what the Ruthless Aggression era did in 2002. But like I've said in the past, WWE refuses to commit to having brands be separate. They always find a loophole. They always break their own rules, which again, it's their show. They treat it the way they want it to be treated. So that's entirely up to them. But then, don't ask me, as a wrestling fan, and many others out there, to care about Raw versus SmackDown when there is no real stakes, when there is no real fight between brands. There is nothing to entice fans to give a damn about red versus blue. That's WWE's fault. That's their lack of build. That's their lack of hindsight. That's their lack of structure in terms of creative. Because they did this, I believe, in 2018 and 2019. They've been doing this for years and years and years, and they can't plan ahead. They refuse, as a matter of fact, they refuse to plan ahead and give this pay-per-view, a Big Four pay-per-view, one of the most traditional events in WWE history, the importance it deserves. And so, Survivor Series, at least for me, it's going to bring us some great action. Champions versus champions all around the board. Some traditional Survivor Series elimination matches, which will be a joy to watch. But again, it doesn't matter. There's no real story behind it other than the contrived part that they've been trying to produce over the past week and a half on WWE programming. And because of that, WWE's programming right now suffers. So with that said, let's get past Friday Night SmackDown, which there's going to be more build. Let's get past Sunday's Survivor Series, again with great action and some shocking results nonetheless. And then let's head into the new year, hopefully WWE knowing what's to come ahead, with WrestleMania season just like 2-3 months away. So let's hope WWE can get this back on track. Alright. So with that said, let's move on to a pay-per-view that happened that was pretty damn good, if I'm allowed to say, because again, I did not watch it. I was working while the pay-per-view was happening, but again, the build-up for that pay-per-view outshines 100 times to 1 what WWE currently does with Survivor Series. And of course, I'm talking about AEW's Full Gear in Minnesota this past weekend, where the biggest result was Hangman Adam Page finally becoming the AEW World Champion. He finally beat his former tag team partner, his former tag team champion in Kenny Omega, in the main event of AEW's final pay-per-view extravaganza of the year. He beat them. He beat what has been, up until now, the most dominant AEW World Champion of all time. And it appears that AEW finally has a homegrown star as their world champion. Whatever definition of homegrown you have, that's entirely up on you, because you might consider Kenny Omega to be a homegrown star, since, you know, he was part of New Japan Pro Wrestling, and then Hangman Adam Page was a part of Ring of Honor Wrestling, and there's a lot going up. True homegrown stars is just, to me, is just someone who wasn't brought up by WCW, it wasn't brought up by WWE, not one bit. So with that said, where do we go now? Because clearly, AEW built to this story, maybe not a year in advance, although some fans would want you to think that way. They did build this up, and a lot of fans were disappointed when this match, this moment, did not happen in August at All Out, and Christian Cage was the one who replaced Hangman Adam Page at that time. A lot of fans, a lot of AEW fans, myself included, were disappointed. Now the story comes full circle. Kenny Omega appears to be injured. That's what's going around in the news websites as of right now. So, needless to say, Hangman Adam Page will be world champion for the foreseeable future. I don't think there's going to be a rematch coming anytime soon between Omega and Page. But what's next? Because AEW clearly made the right move. The right move was to have Hangman Adam Page dethrone Kenny Omega. The right man won at Full Gear. But what now? What now? Because fans clearly want to see Kenny Omega versus Bryan Danielson in a rematch. They want a decisive winner. And most importantly, they want that match to be for the AEW World Championship. And that match could have happened in the very near future had Kenny Omega not lost, because Bryan Danielson, defeated Miro in the finals of the Eliminator Tournament. Much like last year, Kenny Omega defeated Hangman Adam Page in those very same finals. But it's too damn soon to take the title off of Hangman Adam Page. At least that's my opinion. And that's the opinion of most fans out there, because they don't like hot-shotting the titles. They don't like playing hot potato with the World Heavyweight Championship. So what do we do now? What do we do now? Page versus Danielson, one-on-one for the World Heavyweight Championship. No Kenny Omega. None of that is happening for the foreseeable future. What do we do next? I mean, Page has to retain. They have to try to establish him as a top guy, as a main eventer. And what better way is there for that than to have him beat Bryan Danielson in a world title defense, in his very first world title defense. Now that would send a hell of a message to the wrestling world. And then we have CM Punk. CM Punk, who made his return to professional wrestling after 7 years of being out. When his return happened, all the way back in August, I was at work. I had no clue he had returned until I showed up, came here home, got on my computer, on this very same computer right now, got on YouTube, and just saw the headlines, saw the videos that CM Punk was all elite. He was back. And the excitement, the uproar of the crowd, the possibilities that AEW now had with the return of one of the biggest stars of WWE's PG era. One of the most gifted and technical wrestlers in the world today. He was back. CM Punk, the voice of the voiceless, was back. And AEW, both AEW and CM Punk have made a very strong decision in keeping him away from high-profile matches, from high-profile opponents. That's not to say guys like Darby Allin and Eddie Kingston aren't high-profile opponents or high-profile matches. They are. But that's just scratching the surface of what CM Punk can truly do in that ring with AEW's top stars. And Tony Khan has said it in the past. He said it in interviews. He's purposely, in his own way, purposely kept CM Punk away from the bigger name stars of AEW. Because they want to reintroduce us to CM Punk. They want to give us a different presentation. Because I understand this, because if CM Punk made his return and his AEW debut, and he was presented as a top guy, that would have been just fine. That would have been swell for All Elite Wrestling. But for the most part, that would have been off of what WWE built back in 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013. AEW decides to go the route of, we're bringing you back. You're a big name in this business. We're making headlines. It's your return. But we want to establish you in our company as a wrestler. Yes, you're the name, CM Punk. Yes, you are the star, CM Punk. Yes, you are the box office ratings seller and contributor, CM Punk. But we're going to have you go up against guys that the audience does not want you to go up against, or that they don't want you to go up against still, until we give it to them, because we are presenting you in a way that we are rebuilding you up in the middle of the ring. We want you to be a technical wrestler. A wrestler first, a star later. We know what you represent. We know what we can do with you if we put you on the marquee. We know that. But we want you to be the guy to go out there and face a guy like Darby Allin, like Eddie Kingston, and all those other young guys, and bring them up. Show them the ropes. Put them over. Give them the rub. Make headlines out of them. And that is exactly what AEW has been doing with CM Punk. And I think that's not going to stop until next year, when they finally ramp him up to go up against a Kenny Omega, a Bryan Danielson, a Hangman and a Page, a Chris Jericho, a Jon Moxley, if he returns. Hopefully he returns very, very soon, all healed up, obviously. So with that said, I don't think CM Punk's return to pro wrestling has been a disappointment. I think it's just a different approach to what fans would have wanted, because, you know, this term is thrown around very, very much in the IWC, but the fact of the matter is, we are all very fickle. We change our opinions like that. We are very impatient fans. We want it right now. Look no further than when something happens on any show, you have fans and pundits, myself included, questioning that every move. Not choosing to wait until the entire story plays out and what twists and turns await us, but we decide to criticize it right here, right now, because we don't agree with that step. That is what we do. We're just gonna have to wait and see. But in my mind, CM Punk has not been a complete disappointment. His return to AEW, his return to professional wrestling, the ratings haven't gone up, other than when he first made his return. That might have something to do with how he's being booked. But like I said, patience is key to all of this, and we'll eventually get there. And finally, I want to talk about what transpired at Bound for Glory this past October. It's been quite a few weeks. But we had our marquee matchup, the main event, Christian Cage defending his Impact World Championship against Option C winner, Josh Alexander. Well, excuse me, not Option C winner. Former X Division champion who cashed in his Option C, much like I presented to all of you through this YouTube channel a few months ago before I went on hiatus. And on Impact Wrestling's biggest stage, their biggest pay-per-view of the year, Christian Cage was defeated by the walking weapon. The former X Division champion Josh Alexander beat Christian Cage in the middle of the ring. He was Impact World Champion for all of 1, 2, 3 minutes before the winner of the Call Your Shot Gauntlet match, Moose, came out and decided to call his shot for the Impact World Championship, much like in WWE a superstar would do with the Money in the Bank briefcase. He decided to cash that gauntlet title opportunity in. And he did so by pitting the new Impact World Champion in under 10 seconds to become, finally, Impact World Champion. To have finally Moose become Mr. Impact Wrestling, because now he had the hardware, he had the gold around his waist and on his shoulder, and that he was holding up high above his head. And I gotta say, I did not buy the pay-per-view, like I said. Right now, this YouTube channel is a hobby. I'm just giving my opinion. I don't have the opportunity to buy pay-per-view events because I'm usually at work. I'm not able to watch these things transpire live, so everything I do is after I watch clips or replays or whatever it may be. But from what I've watched on Impact Wrestling social media, if I had been watching that live, I would have been shocked in the very best of ways. Because in that main event at Bound for Glory, Impact Wrestling established Josh Alexander as a singles competitor, as a threat, as a main eventer. He beat Christian Cage clean in the middle of that ring to become world champion. Every single Impact Wrestling fan out there, every single fan that watched the pay-per-view knows that. So they don't doubt Josh Alexander's ability to get that title back whenever he may want it back. But then to have the audacity to have someone like Moose, one of Impact Wrestling's biggest heels, one of Impact Wrestling's most loyal stars, come out and just take it all away. I mean, you had Josh Alexander in the middle of the ring celebrating with his kid, with his wife, with his family, a milestone in his career. He finally proved the naysayers wrong. He finally proved everybody wrong that said that he was just a tag team wrestler, that's why he excelled. And then after that, he became the X Division champion and he put on great matches, but that was all he would be able to do. He finally proved them wrong. And then Moose, and to an extent Impact Wrestling themselves, screwed Josh Alexander out of the world title. Why? Because the bell rang when you had not only his wife, but his child. I don't think his child is older than 10 years old. His child was still in the ring when the bell rang, and Moose hit him with a spear and pinned him 1, 2, 3 to take the Impact World Championship off of Josh Alexander, to ruin his moment. They did that, and they could not have told a better story. So Impact Wrestling, what's next? What now? Where do we go from here? We've got Hard to Kill all the way in January. We're about to have Turning Point this upcoming weekend, where Moose will defend his Impact World Championship against a longtime rival and former best friend, and also Impact Wrestling loyalist in Eddie Edwards, a match where he'll for sure retain. But Impact Wrestling is stuck in a tricky situation because if you do the rematch, or I don't even know if you can call it a rematch when they barely had a match at all. If you do Moose versus Josh Alexander in Dallas, Texas, in January, who comes out with the world title? Do you cut Moose's title short, which would be a bad move? Or do you have him retain over Josh Alexander, which would be a bad move? Because you're trying to establish both of them as world title threats, both of them as top stars for Impact Wrestling. And right now, the company has booked themselves in a corner in the best of ways. Because again, both of these guys, Moose and Josh Alexander, can lead the company into the new year and into the next few months and put on some entertaining TV. They can both do that. And there is a way to have that match and have them both come out looking better than before. But even then, where does the other go after that? Because a year ago, Rich Swann became Impact World Champion. He beat Eric Young in the main event of Bound for Glory. And then he lost it. And right now he's stuck in the tag team division. He's stuck in the mid-card division. He's an afterthought. They haven't given Rich Swann his due, and I would hate for that to happen to Moose or Josh Alexander. And fans want long title reigns. They do not, like I said in the past, like I've said in this very video, they don't like hot-shotting the titles. But back in 2011, that gave Impact Wrestling their highest ratings of all time in 2011. That's when they changed the titles more times. The Attitude Era was full of title changes. And that's how you create stars. That's how you build resumes. That's how you build pedigrees for all these stars. So again, if you ask me, I'd keep the title on Moose. I'd have someone else screw Josh Alexander out of the world title opportunity, keep him away from the world title opportunity, and then bring him back and actually have him have a long title reign. That would be my move. That would be my long-term decision planning. But again, it's very tough in the best of ways because Impact Wrestling has really, over the past 4 years, ever since Scott D'Amore and Don Callis took over, Impact Wrestling has been consistent in terms of booking and giving fans what they want. They might not be able to keep their top stars because Impact Wrestling has lost their footing as a number 2 wrestling company or even a big enough company to keep these big stars on contract. But if you like wrestling, you should check out Impact Wrestling on Access TV, a channel that will not take him anywhere. That's got him stuck there, but that is a topic for a different time. So with all of that out of the way, as you can tell by now, I started this broadcast, I started this video, this show, without introducing myself, without reintroducing myself. Even though the lower third, right here, yeah, clearly has my name. And my name is Alexis Carrillo, and it's a pleasure to be back on my channel, and it's a pleasure to be back discussing professional wrestling with the IWC, all of you which are watching. It is a very big pleasure of mine to be back, and I am sorry that I took a 4+ month hiatus. And over the course of this show, over the course of the past few days, I had been pondering if I should give any importance to my leaving in the past few months, to not being able to put some content on my channel. I gave a lot of thought to that. And the decision I had was, when I return, to doing shows on the YouTube channel, on this YouTube channel, my YouTube channel, Wrestling Talk. I was going to do so by not making a big deal of it at the start of the show. Because this show, even though I am the host of this show, I produce this show, and I want this show to be successful, this show is about professional wrestling. It's not about me hosting it. It's not about me personally of what's happening to me. I'm here to talk about professional wrestling, and I love discussing professional wrestling. I love watching professional wrestling. But over the past 4 months, I took a hiatus for that long of a time, and it's not the first hiatus I took. But it's the hiatus that hurt the most. Because 4 months ago, I took a vacation from my work, from my job. I went back to Mexico to visit my family. Had a great time. Had a lot of memories made down there. And then I came back and found myself in a situation where I had to work a lot more to exist, to be able to maintain myself, and which resulted in a lack of time for me to make any new content on this channel. And that sucks a lot. Because like I said, my whole goal, my career goal, is to build this channel, build myself, build my name as a wrestling pundit. And I wasn't able to do that for quite some time. And I'm not going to lie to you guys. I've been able to make content to talk about wrestling for a month now. A whole month, 30 days, even more, give or take a few days. I've been able to get in front of the camera, turn this microphone on, and just shoot the shit with you guys about professional wrestling. And it was hard to come back. Because I had lost practice. Because I didn't know where to start. Because I just wasn't a part of this anymore. But now that I'm back, I'm not gonna tell you I'm back. I'm here to stay. I'm not gonna tell you that I might not take a long hiatus again, because I've done that in the past. You can check all my uploads on YouTube over the past 5 years. I've done that. I've been guilty of that, and I won't do that. I will not overpromise. I will underpromise and overdeliver. That is my hope, and therefore I am back on this channel. I cannot give you a steady schedule because, again, like I said, I have to work for a living. This is a hobby that I want to build up. This is a show that I want to build up, give better production values, and I'm sorry for the bad lighting that I have right now. But again, this was a last minute thing. Me going back on the air, back on YouTube. So with that said, I hope that you guys join me in this journey of building this show up, Wrestling Talk, with me, Alexis Carrillo. And if you don't, because you're not trusting of me maintaining this show on the air or making new content, that's completely fair. But if you do want to be a part of this show, if you want to keep watching, and if you want to help me grow this channel to where I want it to be, a great place for debate amongst wrestling fans. Hopefully I can get to 1,000 subscribers so that I can start doing live broadcasts and include all of you in the conversation. Go ahead and send your topics and questions to the email right down here where the lower third says, and I will try my absolute best to get to each and every single one of you and make you a part of this show and make those topics important to this show. But with that said, I'm Alexis Carrillo. It's a pleasure to be back. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.